Okay, awesome. So thanks everyone for checking this episode out. I'm joined today by an awesome brown belt, MMA fighter, awesome person, Sarah Wilson. Sarah, thanks for joining us. Tell the good people about the podcast a little bit more about yourself.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan. My name is Sarah. I've traveled all around. I was born originally in Ontario. So that's where I kind of started my martial arts journey, I'd say, when I was not really sure of my age. I had actually just gotten out of a relationship and I was really angry and I wanted to punch something. So I got into Muay Thai and it was perfect. So Muay Thai was my first thing. And then so that was like in my 20s. So then when I was kind of coming of age, and so I got into nursing, went into nursing school out in BC, moved out. So that's what brought me out to BC in my mid 20s. And then I did nursing school, got out of nursing school, found a MMA gym that to try to get back into Muay Thai. And then, like, as it happens, you see those people wearing those funny little robes, you ask a question, you try a class, and then it just sucks you in. So that was in BC, right? So, and then I was kind of like more of a casual kind of like, I was still competing a lot, right, from white belt actually. But then when I switched gyms at blue belt to RDC, and that's where I got really serious about just kind of honing in the technique. And I was at that age where I stopped partying too. So that kind of helped, that like natural transition where I had more time on my hands and stuff. And then yeah, about 2 years ago, almost on the nose now, me and my partner moved out to Nova Scotia here, and we've been training at Sprawler Brawl. Yeah, and it was before I moved out here, I had started transitioning into the full MMA aspect. Um, Even had like a couple of fights lined up right before COVID, but that's where like all the cancellations started. So when I had that first fight with FLA finally in April, I think that was like 3 years and maybe like 4 postponed canceled fights, so it was a long time coming. Yeah, and so now I am definitely focusing more on jiu-jitsu and competitive jiu-jitsu and trying to like break into the pro level. Like, I'm getting ready to like reach the black belt level, so I'm trying to kind of really take it seriously. And I still am kind of like dabbling in the MMA and want to try a few more fights, but um the vibe or like that catch didn't really get me the same way jiu-jitsu does. Like, I still like to train MMA and stuff like that, but I'm like not able to not train jiu-jitsu, or like, so it's kind of,
Yeah,
it doesn't have the same love for me yet that jiu-jitsu does. So that's how I got to Nova Scotia and who I am and how I got to brown belt.
awesome. Very, very interesting. A lot of stuff to talk about. First, I think what I'm most interested in is your most recent competition. So as you mentioned, you really like to do competitions and you're very active with them. You're always training for something. You always got something coming up, sometimes multiple competitions. So tell people the competition that you did recently. I believe it was in California. Tell people the
Yes.
details of that one. Where,
Oh,
what was it about? And just tell us
I
how
would
it went.
love to, because this is probably the first time, definitely in my athletic career, maybe in my life, that I have actually just been able to sit back and be like, I think I'm proud of myself. Like, I'm so hard on myself all the time, like not
Yeah.
by choice. I wish I wasn't, but um it was around, so I got my brown belt at the end of last year. Like, I actually went home for Christmas to see my coach, and he kind of surprised me with my brown belt. It had been about, just over 2 years, so it was kind of time. So then when I came back home, I was actually going for a hike one day, and then I don't know what the thought process was, but I just kind of had that like realization, or came to that moment of like, competing in jiu-jitsu is just been the only thing I've really found in life that like really just kind of fires me up. And I'm talking as far as like hobbies, careers, just everything in general, right? So I
Yeah.
kind of made that conscious decision that I was just going to kind of go all in. And like, I'm 30, I just turned 34 actually. Sorry, I haven't said it out loud yet. I'm 34. So it's not like I have this like, endless amount of time that I can keep screwing around, right? So I was like, okay, I got a good like 5 to 10 years of like heavy competition in me. I'm just gonna do it. And I think I had gotten like a fortune cookie or something where I had read a quote somewhere where it was fortune favors the brave, or fortune favors the bold, I think was the exact words. So that I took that as like, like, if you don't put yourself out there, right, you're not gonna find out. And I had a really good training going into the early year, and booked up a bunch of stuff, and it was my first time getting booked at this high level like competition. And so the first one I did was a submission on the shore. I lost my first round in under a minute to a triangle after publicly posting about how I hadn't been tapped in competition in years and years and stuff, right? Like it was just, and I really like, and I had so much support from all of Nova Scotia. Everybody was tuning in. It was just a hard moment. And not like I cared that like I lost, but it was just that like reality versus like expectation being
Yeah.
like, oh, and when you lose that fast, I like, I didn't know I made a simple mistake that made it happen. But at the same time, you're like, was it a simple mistake or am I somebody who gets tapped out in under a minute when I go to big situations like that? Right. And then I went to ADCC, lost again, had my first MMA fight, lost. Actually had a local competition and I lost with like overtime rules, the absolute, like, and I don't usually lose locally. So just like losing, losing, losing. So now all this time went by. I was like beaten down and I was like, and I went to that same spot again where I was like, I just have to do it again. And this time I had to build my confidence, even though I had all these facts telling me I didn't have the skills, and I had to build confidence in spite of that. And like, that was, I think, what I was the most proud of after that event, because I went in there 100% confident, even though I had all this proof that, I didn't do it. Right. And so and it kind of felt full circle because now I went back to the same event I did, submission on the shore, same thing, black belts, $1,000 cash prize. And I won. I fought a purple belt and two black belts, and both the black belts I fought, like one I already knew of and is really accomplished. She like won a no-gi bronze medal last year. The other one has a couple no-gi world titles too at black belt. Like they both train at good, like they're just people who I wish I could be or have that skill level as, and I would just be happy to hold my own, and I won, right? Like, and it was just so like incredible, just being like, and it wasn't winning that was incredible. It wasn't anything. It was just being like, everything I work on, the package that I've created is able to like hang at the level that I like admire and look up to. It's like I'm like starting to get there. And it was just a really cool. I like walked out of that tournament and I cried, which is funny because whenever I see people crying at tournaments, I'm always like, imagine that this is so important to you that like you cry over this. And it was actually really cool. I was like, wow, I actually like let myself just care enough about jiu-jitsu to get so attached to the not the outcome of the win or loss, because like I didn't like it wasn't really the necessarily the getting the hand raised, you know what I mean? But like anyways, and
You're just proud of yourself for that moment. That like
yeah,
it's just the resiliency of that's what jiu-jitsu teaches you. You lost in that event, you came back. For people that wouldn't know, like Sarah's a pretty dominant competitor, especially on the local scene. When I first heard of you, it would have been, geez, it must be 3-4 years ago now, but it would have been an event. I think I did commentary for FLA. So it was a jiu-jitsu event in the cage. You beat up a couple girls there. I think you're still technically the double champ for FLA, and you won a couple belts there. So, and really, honestly, most of your matches were not competitive. Like you were like, take the girl down, get on top, either get a submission or be very dominant. So, yeah, I can see how it going to a big competition, because I've been there before. Like you get some local wins, you feel like, okay, I feel like a big fish in a small pond or whatever it is, and then you go and get a loss, and it just hurts. Jiu-jitsu competition, and I'm sure MMA too. It's just you feel so vulnerable, and the wins feel awesome, but the losses just hurt so much. So yeah, you should be proud of yourself for coming back and that same event. And yeah, so it was in California, and I think you mentioned it was for $1,000 cash. It was a 8-person bracket. Tell people a little bit more about the details of it and how you found out of it.
It was an EBI overtime rule set, which is it was actually kind of interesting because it's and I find like I've competed under like dozens of different rule sets, and they always bring out different things, and I don't think everybody could always beat the same opponents in every different rule set, like my first match ended pretty quickly in a sub, and but like so then my next 2 matches were against black belt. So the first one it was actually again, it was kind of funny because I just really like the big thing that has changed my jiu-jitsu is just like being who I want to be, whether or not I feel like it or think I am, but just like that fake it till you make it, embody it, like just be how you wish to be seen. It is another quote I saw. Like, so I was really just being like friendly, because I've tried a million different things at events, like trying to be like the gruff person, the angry, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's all behind me. So I was actually just chatting with the other competitor. I didn't know her that well. We were both just talking about kind of just how it's funny, how like, just how serious everybody is. And we're like, yeah, we don't know anybody. Let's just chat, like, and we're both talking about how much we like wrestling. And excited that the other person, like, she's like, oh, I see you doing wrestling. I like to do wrestling. Hopefully we can go against each other. Cause like I never get to wrestle somebody. And I didn't think much of that at all. And like, the one thing about training at Sprawler Brawl, my wrestling has been getting like extremely good. They're very, very good wrestlers there. So even if I can't necessarily get like you down, you're definitely not getting me down. Like I know that for sure. So anyway, when I started wrestling her, and I'm going, I don't know how long we're on the feet for. I still haven't rewatched those matches, but then she jumped close guard on me. And after maybe a minute, 2 minutes, whatever. And the second she did that, I was just like, oh, I won. Like, you know what I mean? I don't like, I just knew she
mentally that's a win sometimes.
And I won, right? And it was just kind of, and it was just kind of like, oh, like cool, you know? So, and then I don't remember like I've never been one to like, who can really like play back the matches in my mind, but I did, like I passed her and I was on top of her. And I think she ended up getting me swept at one point, but then I was dominant just on top of her. Like my go-to sequence is just like the high mount to back sequence, back and forth kind of thing. So I just kind of was between that for the rest of the match. And these were long matches. They were like 10-minute matches with 3-4 minute rounds of overtime. So it ended up being like 20-minute matches, right? Like, and yeah, I just didn't like, I had that usual forearm burningness, but I just like really been working on those performance breaths that Gavin Tucker has been teaching us about. And like the mentality, I just really wasn't trying to react to their game. I was just playing my game. I was being smooth. Like, I wasn't wasting energy or thoughts on anything like that. And like, just felt really good. And remember at the end of the match, just being like, oh man, like I can still go, like,
yeah.
And then the next match happened and I knew, and the other girl, she had 2 quick subs. She was on the like mat for like under a minute with both her matches, just 2 quick footlock. She's an amazing footlock artist. And so, and I was going in just being like, I didn't cut any corners in my training. So I was just bringing my best shot and just being like, okay, like I'm not going to make the mistakes I made last time when I like lost, and I'm just going to play my game. And she just like, I had an answer for everything. Like, cause she'd get me in a footlock, and the defenses I do at home against the local guys they work here, like it's just nice to see that how the game translates. And then as the match progressed, the regulation time, I eventually, got on top, started to get into my more dominant positions and just that kind of grindy top pressure I like to do. So again, I wasn't able to get the sub in time, but so at that point I could kind of feel the momentum of the match changing almost, and then like with the first overtime matches I had to do, I escaped right away all 3 times. And it was funny because it was like one escape was something that like the guy from Sprawler Brawl had shown me. One was an escape that Frank from Picto had shown me, you know what I mean? Like because I'd been really cross training a lot while I was around and stuff. And then, so at the third, like, so on my final ones, it was more competitive. Like shoot took longer too, but I felt like even with it before hearing the ref decision, I knew that mine were faster. And then, and then like, even though I knew I won, they raised my hand, and there's like a picture of me looking at Jesse, like, just because like, I had my hand raised, like I just did it. Right. And it just like, and in the past, I've had to, fight that. Like there's actually like Emily Shield. I don't even know if you know her. She's a pretty good female black belt out west, but there was like an ongoing joke when I used to compete locally that like just they'd say like just don't shit the bed before I'd compete, because I would travel like 12 hours to a competition by myself, drive, and then just like freak out and just get smashed and just and you know what I mean. And like I remember one time I went to a competition with her, same thing. I drove like 8 hours by myself, went to a baby shower in the morning, drank a whole bunch of mimosas, and then came and competed. And she was just like, why? Like, why did you do any of this? Like, what was the point? Like, and I think sometimes you almost like look for that excuse when things are getting really hard, or your mind naturally switches into like, I'm not somebody who does like amazing, cool, hard things and like is resilient in the face of all this adversity, and that is what I did. And I think that was just more than anything, just like what I was so proud of. Like my cardio was there. I didn't give up. I always kept that hope or that drilling, even when I was in bad positions. Like I felt like I had that perfect balance of like technique, but like still kind of initiating the scrambles. You know what I mean? Like you have to kind of find that balance and stuff. And I still haven't actually watched the matches back. And sometimes, you go and watch it back and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that was horrible. But until I see evidence of it, I was amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you won $1,000 cash.
Yeah.
So did they give you a big check, or did they just give you cash, or how did that work?
They PayPal it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
They have the coolest organization. Like Albert, the guy who runs it, he has like the 10th Planet Gym in Sacramento there, and like he doesn't really do much advertising for this promotion or like really put it out there, but like he has like extremely high level people who come on and have been on past events. They throw these big events, they give these huge prizes. They put like they try to do predominantly women cards, which I just think is so cool. And like
Yeah.
yeah, and they don't really like ask for much back, you know what I mean? Like they're sometimes, you know, people really pressure you, and I understand it. I'm not trying to put a negative light on it, but they really pressure you to like uh advertise, or just they're just really on you about like ticket sales or
Yeah.
you know, just whatever it may be. And I 100% like, especially when you're a newer belt or newer competitor, like I feel like that is part of the collaborative effect to bring jiu-jitsu to people, you know. But he's just he takes like you sign up for it, and then you don't talk till you go weigh in 3 months later. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like
Awesome.
it's pretty chill.
One thing that you said too that I thought was interesting was the mentality thing about tournaments. I think it was something for me too, where you sometimes need to flip a switch where you go from like, do I really belong here? I'm just here, to like, no, I belong here. I can be on that podium. I can win this. Is that something, I know you kind of briefly mentioned it, but talk a little bit more. Is that something you definitely noticed that you changed, a switch in your mentality that shifted, that
Yeah,
made you
like
do a little bit better? Or talk about how your
for
mentality is
sure.
going.
Like, and I think that and I think everybody's different, but like for me, the mental side of things was really like the what I had to unlock or smooth out to become a good competitor. And I again, I think that's different for everybody, because I'm somebody who naturally like overthinks and stresses and has like those issues where my thoughts make things more difficult for myself. So it's no surprise that that also translates over to a competitive sport where if you're competing alone on, like, you know, a lot of spotlights on you. And it was
Yes.
around like I think it was maybe like beginning of blue belt, then into my purple belt, where because I competed heavily, like right from the beginning. I like there was times where I was competing 10, 15 times a year, and this was fairly consistent since white belt. So I definitely think I have like more than experience in the average person. And so in the beginning, I would have like tons and tons of nerves, but also as a white belt, I had a fairly good record and stuff too. So it just you just kind of like just did it. You just kind of showed up. There wasn't a lot of technique. And then I guess around blue belt, the stakes just maybe feel like they're getting a bit higher or something like that. And then, and I just remember at some point, I don't know when it happened around like blue purple, but the pressure just started like getting so bad where I didn't want to compete, but I did want to compete. And like, you find yourself thinking those thoughts like, oh, maybe I'll get lucky and break my leg and not have to compete. Like, you know what I mean? Like those
Yeah.
kind of like thoughts
Looking
where
for
you're just
a
like,
hangout.
that's not a normal thing to think, you know? Like, and I worked a lot with my coach at the time. My coach from Kelowna, his name is Sterling. And so he's the one who I spent the bulk of my jiu-jitsu with. And he was really good at incorporating all those mental parts of the jiu-jitsu game into, like, we'd have classes where we'd like deconstruct some of that mental stuff, and the importance of bringing a game plan into every match to combat some of that stuff, and how like sticking and just kind of, and he would like, you know, I would talk to him privately about some of these worries, and then he'd like, you know, bring it to class and we'd all go over it and stuff like that. So I worked a lot with him to get, and I found I got to like a manageable state where I was able to compete, and it was all well and good. And then it was actually the book The Brave Athlete that like, and I like anybody who has ever asked me about me competing, they can vouch that I will like say the name of that book, because to me that book is what just changed everything for me. And it's nothing like it, I think it's a great book. I've never really had anybody who I've recommended it to say the same like positive like reaction that I've had. And it's nothing really that the book like has it so magical, but I think the biggest thing I took out of that book was that like the thoughts that I hear from my head before a competition, they call it in the book like a computer virus, and they give examples like thinking that like discounting all your previous wins. Oh, my competitors weren't that good. That's why I won. Wanting to get hurt before a race. Like, you know what I mean? And as soon as they said that, I was like, whoa, like that's what I do. Like, you know what I mean? And so that was the first key where I was like, oh, maybe this stuff isn't true. And then the addition to that was like, um, because there's certain things I think almost everybody who has anxiety about competing is scared of. And for me, it was never really losing. It was always like looking like an idiot, like getting
Yeah.
smashed under mount and tapping to pressure, like those kind of things were what I was like just terrified of, right? And so they like and even it was actually a book tailored around like triathletes and stuff, but I really just took so much from it. And they were saying like, so narrow down what you are scared about in training, and then center your training around that. You know what I mean? Have people sit on mount, like start and mount, high mount with your elbows
Yeah.
up, and like, you know what I mean? Just find out what you're scared of and work out of that. And that's what I did. Like, and then, and I'd fall back out of things, and then I'd listen to the audiobook again and feel all built up. But yeah, so I'd say the major things I did was like I took away a meditation practice, and like I'm not really quite at the point where I can sit and meditate, but in my morning hikes I start off by doing like a guided walking meditation, and it's honestly like the laziest meditation ever. It's like playing the background while I'm like distracted, and I'm like, "Oh right, I'm grateful for everything," and like go back and forth, but I do feel like it does help me. Um and then the fake it till you make it thing, again, it's in the book thing, and they like back it up with science. Like it does, you can convince yourself something just by faking it. Yeah, creating my training sessions around there. And yeah, like just being bold when you don't feel bold, like, you know what I mean? Just going through the actions. Like, I think the hardest competition I ever did was actually the last FLA one, where we had like the first match in the morning at like 9 a.m. Then our last one was at like 10:30. My body felt something that I had never felt before. It was just, I remember waiting, like my final was against Charlene, and me and Charlene are friendly. We're friends, right? And I remember like in my body, it was like this stiff, like weird. It hurt. Everything hurt. I felt like I couldn't stretch my arms. Like I just, like and I'm like looking over her. I'm like, she has to be feeling like this. I'm like, why is she smiling? Like, why? Like, and I honestly just wanted to go home. Like, I was just like, nothing is worth this. Like, nothing. Like, what are they going to give me, a belt? Like, you know what I mean? I'm dying here. And I just had to like, I just had to do it. Right. Yeah, and then, like, and I remember after that match, that, like, all the pictures from that event are what really got me to double down on my cardio, because I looked like a maniac after those that event, and I have somebody who's I have a good baseline cardio, plus I always train cardio, but I think I wasn't training, like, the mental conditioning cardio,
Right.
and, and for me, that wasn't doing anything intense. That was like, I would do cardio that I would like I like going for leisurely jogs with my dogs, So, but like I don't like doing sprint, So
Yeah.
it was kind of incorporating some of that stuff in. So yeah, the final key was kind of really buckling in those really mentally tough training sessions, not taking breaks between rolls, um, picking the partners who I hate to roll with. Like, you know what I mean? Just that was kind of the final step where I just made everything really difficult on myself. And then that started building that pride. I was building pride and confidence because I was putting myself through things willingly on my own accord that were going to be harder than training. And then, so then like when I actually stepped on that final like competition mat, and like right before that event actually was the first time in a while I had to dive. Like so I was actually supposed to have a super fight the next day, but my opponent dropped out like the night before. So they put up my fight poster the week before, and all that stuff happened where I had the panic attack. I like, what am I doing? Like, why do I think I'm just gonna go compete? I think she was like one of Boogeyman's brown belts, and like just the name kind of
Okay.
like got in my head, and I was like, I'm gonna go like fight with like black belts and the brown. Like I already know what's gonna happen. You already tried this. Like you saw what was gonna happen, Like, and the last time that I went down there, I got tapped. It wasn't even to a brown or black belt. It was to a 17-year-old purple belt. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, you have evidence to tell you why this isn't a good idea. And I actually just flipped on that book again because I I have I just do residual habits and that make me feel good. And I put that book on, and it only took to like the first chapter where I was just like, okay, yeah, of course there's nerves. It's because there's something at stake in my like, inner whatever wants to try to protect myself and is trying to throw up warnings so that I won't do it so that I'll be safer. But you don't get new opportunities and you don't get new rewards unless you put that risk out, right? So
Yeah.
um yeah, and the big thing I realized, because like those losses really hurt. And I think a big part of that loss is what you envision everybody else's change in perception of you is. And the cool thing about this last tournament is that I won what I think was like the biggest event of my life, or like just I did something, and it was not only was it a big event, but it was really indicative of like what I want to do. I was like, look, like there's now proof that what I have planned to do is possible. And I came home and like nobody gave a shit, the same way that nobody gives a shit when I lose. Like it just, you like you like walk into or like my go see my family and I'm like, oh, no standing ovation? Like, okay, no, like, no, I just kind of thought that like maybe some like, you get off the airplane, you're like, I just thought the whole city was gonna have like
Yeah,
flowers for me.
no parade yet.
Yeah, and like not actually, obviously, but it was just kind of cool to see that like
But you just
how
got to go
fans
back at it. It's just like you said, you lose, your team isn't hard on you. They're just supportive. You win, your team doesn't overpraise you because it's not good for you. I don't think in a way. I think it's good to just get back at it, focus on your next challenge, and just kind of use that experience just like you were.
Yeah, like, sorry to interrupt, but like who you are as an athlete isn't defined by like those wins and losses, and that's what I'm really like kind of coming to terms with because and like so many times people would like people would say to me like I don't get why you get nervous before an event, like you win everything, and I was like I think you just think that because I compete so much that I like you see a few hand raises pictures every year, but like sometimes like there's some years where that might have been most of them, some years that's not most of them, right? But I think it's just like the throw enough things at a wall, some might stick.
Yeah. One other competition I would like to ask you about too that was recent, I think it was this year, geez, I can't even remember, but the ADCC trials. That was one that I saw when you were going to that. I was like, holy, that's pretty cool because anyone watching or listening to this would know about ADCC, how big it is, how awesome it is. Talk about the whole story of you learning about ADCC, signing up for the trials, and just that whole experience.
Oh, totally. So I think anybody who's like into jiu-jitsu, and that might be a stretch, but for sure anybody who competes in nogi like knows about ADCC. Like if you're a competitive like nogi player, you 100% know about ADCC. You maybe don't have aspirations to compete in it, but you probably also do. You know what I mean? It's just like the thing everybody just thinks about it, and it was like always in the back of my head. And I did like have it on my radar the previous year, like I guess probably 2 years ago, and I can't remember exactly what happened at that time. It actually might have been right before we moved, which might have played a factor. But anyways, when I came down this time, actually now that I think about it, this was another one of those like mental things because you know who I had to fight first round was the girl I lost to at the submission series event a month earlier. And I was so mad because I was like, I am paying thousands of dollars in flights here. Like, can I just like there's so many women like
me someone else.
Like you just please, right? And so and I always do preach to people about the importance of knowing your rules because I think that although you always do want to win by submission, if you are a smart competitor, you're going to also use the rules to your advantage when you can't get the submission against a really game opponent, right? Like there are like it's not like that's the ideal way of winning is by the points, but like you're an idiot if you don't use that advantage or let that get used as an advantage against you, right? Like so I didn't go to that rules meeting because in my defense, I had read them online probably at least 30 or 40 times. Like I had read through them and I thought I knew everything. And so I thought that when you pulled guard in overtime, you got a point deducted, which I guess, and maybe that's true in like finals. Anyways, it was not true in this event. So we were like pretty back and forth. We went to overtime. She pulled guard. I had like, and I did pretty well. I had like a sub attempt. I was on top, like just did pretty well. Wasn't able to finish the armbar because I tried to sit up and sometimes you just watch your matches. Like I have a great armbar and I have a whole system and I like sat up into like a sideways mounted triangle. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't really fly. And anyways, and I was tired and thought that I was up on points. And so I like let the round finish out and then she won. And then, like my only solace was that she literally collapsed on the side of the mats and her coach was trying to get her up. And I was just like, a win is a win. A win is a win. But before I was walking onto those mats, it was just that same thing of just being like life is a joke. I'm a joke. Why am I fighting her? And then I just kind of had that same kind of like realization. I was like, there's obviously a reason why of like all the people I'm like, so like, you keep saying that like that last event was a fluke. Well, like, wow, what a perfect opportunity to show that it wasn't a fluke, So even though I also didn't win that one, I did still feel like I won certain things like to take home that I, whatever. But the coolest thing about ADCC though is like I have competed and been at like different Nogi World Pans, like kind of event. So I have been at events where I see like the superstars, you know what I mean? Like you see all the people you follow and stuff like that. But this event was cool in the sense that um like you're warming up beside a lot of them. Like they're like, cause there was a lot of like, I was like, me and Kendall, like Remusic were just warming up beside each other. And it was just kind of like funny. Cause you're just like, cause usually they're like, it's just funny. Cause you're just like, wow, we're just doing the same thing right now. Like,
Yeah.
it was just kind of interesting. And then you're just seeing them all compete and stuff. So, um, those events are always just so cool because just being there in the thick of things, you're walking past like the Gordon Ryans, the Craig Jones, and like, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah,
just,
they're all there coaching their teammates or maybe competing themselves, depending
yeah.
on who it is. So
Actually,
yeah, that's
like
amazing.
Chugga Sean is from the UFC.
Yeah,
The guy with the cotton candy, like braided hair all the time. He happened to be,
Sean O'Malley.
yeah, yeah. So he was actually just like, I guess like in between Jesse and his match when he was going to sign up, like going on to his match to compete. And Sean O'Malley's like, oh, good luck, man. Like gave Jesse a big like high five. Go, yeah, go, yeah. It just like, it's just funny because that's not a usual tournament event. Like,
Yeah,
right. So
totally. I've had that experience too, competing at a New York Open. This would have been like 2013, but I made it to the finals and I was competing against a student of Marcelo Garcia's. And ever since I started jiu-jitsu, I've looked up to Marcelo, watched all his matches. He's the king of ADCC and this and that. And then it's just like you said, one of those weird moments where it's like, okay, I'm going against a guy who's being coached by this guy who I've watched all his matches. I know all his moves. And then, yeah, I didn't win that one, but he's still like, oh, good match. And just like you said, it almost makes you a little bit emotional that like, wow, I'm actually being kind of recognized by someone that is basically a legend in this sport. So yeah, it's cool to have those moments. And I think you'll definitely get more opportunities now that you're winning some of these big ones and you're just getting out there and getting after it so much. Are you looking to do any of these like EBI events or any of these Medusas? What's coming up for you?
oh yeah, like I mean, I've like I tried to my name's out there in like a lot of different like stratospheres. Um so right now we're like, so with Nogi World, I guess it would be the next biggest thing on my radar if I can ever get an IBJJF membership. I am having a very, very hard time with that.
Yeah.
Joel, I'm in my fourth attempt right now, and Joel from Halifax BJJ has been incredibly kind with helping me try to get that set up right now because like it's like they almost don't want you to compete. And so it's just kind of an interesting concept. But anyways, so that is hopefully the next thing. And then my plan for this winter is to actually, we just bought an RV so we can like kind of drive around and travel for a bit. So the only kind of caveat to that is that I also have some clinicals to do for school out in Alberta, and they don't like to tell you about if you're accepted or not until like weeks before. So I might have to be in Alberta for the month of January, might not. If I don't, there's a couple events in California in January that I would like to do. One's a submission on the shore, one's like a battle grappling's having an all-female card. I have like done a couple of the big cards, like submission series, sub hunters, like where you have like the super fight cards and all the fancy shows. So I put in an application before to fight to win. I feel like with stuff like that though, you kind of have to apply for each event when you're not local, because
Yeah, you do.
from the local event, and then if you're trying to go from away, you kind of have to because like those events where they do kind of rely on some ticket sales from the athletes to make the shows kind of break even.
I feel like you're on the cusp of you're like a tournament or two away from like you're not going to have to apply for all these. They're going to start coming to you and be like, Sarah, we want you on this card. We want you. Like that's what you want, really. You don't want.
That's what I want. And like I was hoping to get that at black belt. Like I was hoping, like I feel like right now lucky because I feel like I'm like I feel like there's a chance that I could start getting to that level like at a brown belt, and so that when I am a black belt, it's like I'm ready to compete at a black belt level, and I don't have to iron out some of those kinks because like I've always just tried to compete a lot for that exact reason, just to iron out the kinks. Like I remember my first competition ever, like I just thinking back makes me laugh. Like the things I did, like I bought like crystals and kept them in my bras so they were always near me. Like and it's not like because I was so anxious. Like if I even thought about it, like and this is like, if I even like thought about it, I would want to like retch. Like I was like, and that was my very first competition. And I remember like, and I did all the classic mistakes. I like stalked my opponent online. She was like a coach. Like I just did all the wrong things. And I went in there and I won like all 4 of my divisions. Like everything was fine, but like just all the nerves I had for so long and stuff. And so now, even though I have all the nerves now, like I just feel like everything's a much more of like a well-tuned machine. Like, so even though all the same kind of kinks and hiccups happen, I have that like game plan of, okay, well, like here's what I do when this happens, here's what I do when this happens and stuff. So I'm hoping that by the time I actually start getting those really high level opponents, that's not when I'm learning all those things. When I,
Yeah.
you know, when I finally get onto flow grappling and stuff, hopefully I've, you know, I already got tapped out in a minute to a triangle. You know what I mean? I kind
You
of did
have
all
all
that.
that experience. Yeah. And you will get there. No doubt. I have no doubt about that. You'll definitely be
Yeah.
on.
So
Yeah. So that's awesome. Also, one thing I want to ask you back to the ADCC, recently announced there's an ADCC Open coming up. I think it's going to be in April in Ottawa. Are you going to be potentially interested in that?
yeah, like hopefully. So like, so I originally, that would ideally be when we were like out west in California. Like we have just a general plan of a few gyms that I'd like to see, plus be in the warmest areas possible, make a plan for that. So we keep getting things offered back out here because like now there's a talk of a potential maybe MMA fight in March for me and Jesse and stuff with FLA in Nova Scotia and in the April. So it's like so I don't really have a set plan there, but it does sound awesome. And I feel like Brianna St. Marie would have to compete at that. I would love to compete against her. I would love to even just roll with her, right? Like it's
Amazing.
always just fun rolling with people who like you look up to, but just and like this is obviously just like the cocky stuff that everybody does to everybody, but like you watch those good people and you see what they do, you're like, I feel like I might know a good pass for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's actually like so
It's
Emily, you know,
jiu-jitsu. You're always analyzing. You're always analyzing your own game and analyzing your opponent. So yeah, just like with me watching Marcelo, like you have to watch his game, but at the same time you have to think of counters and like I don't know if you're someone that watches yourself. Do you watch yourself on video and try to think like, oh shit, like I gotta sharpen up my arm drags? Or
oh yeah, like I'm way more of that now. I was not physically able to watch myself for years. Like I just couldn't. Like I was just like sick with embarrassment when I saw myself. I don't know. I just could not do it. But unfortunately, there is like so much learning to be done by rewatching your stuff. And I would say almost like 50-50 the experience you get from competition is the experience itself, but like the footage, you know, if you can properly use that stuff, especially when you're somebody who has like a game plan, like I know people who have very like, you know, unorthodox styles and you just never know what they're going to do, but like you always know what I'm going to do from every position. I could literally like write a handbook and give it to my opponent and I'm still going to do it, right? So
yeah,
it makes it really easy to watch footage and just be like, okay, like actually in that I'm pretty sure you commentated that one where I had that I can't remember her name now. I think she's from New Brunswick, that blue belt I fought where I was like on top of Mount for a while and then she ended up sweeping me and then we kind of were like in a scramble and I had an armbar and stuff, but high mount is like my jam. So I had to, from that video, and I sent it to my coach and we looked over it and I learned about how you have to cross post. Cause if you like, or you have to same side post and I cross post and that's what got me over. And I would have never in a million trillion years known that that's what would happen if I didn't rewatch that. And, oh yeah, my top, like it, and now like it just improves your game more and more, right? You just find those little tiny holes to plug up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It always used to take me a good week or two before I could watch any competition
Yeah.
footage, especially if you lost. And just like you said, you don't want to look bad. It's just I always used to think that too. Like I don't want to look sloppy. Like I'd watch black belts and it looks so smooth and so sharp, and like almost I don't want to embarrass jiu-jitsu and then be out there looking like trash.
That's actually funny because that's how one of the reasons I haven't gotten to watching mine is because they're so long too. So it's like I have to have like an hour to go through the matches. And I forget where I was on the plane or something where I just started watching one and it's still only a few days in, and I was just like, and I just that really awkward like posing. I was just like, no, not too soon. Too soon.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet.
You just feel so awkward and like just yeah, you see people do it and they're just like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And then you're just like, oh, excuse me, sir, I'm just gonna pass your guard here.
So you've competed, like you said, in so many rule sets, EBI, points, all this. If you had your ideal rule set, say you had a match against Brianna St. Marie, what's the rule set that you would pick?
Oh, interesting question. I feel like I'd actually have to to actually get if that was a real situation, I'd have to think about it for like a night, because even like those EBI rules, I never actually used to like those. I thought they were really stupid, and I think that was just because I was scared of them, But when I actually was like looking into them, the concept behind them was that like you never have to have a ref decision or anything, because the rule set itself will always determine a winner. Like you'll never
Yeah.
have an equal thing. So I did feel that, like I did feel that vibe from the event. Like I felt like if you were grindier, like if you I just felt like it was easier to like not put things up to chance and win things out. But yeah, that's interesting because
I'll give
I
you,
also
I'll give you a couple options. You could go points, no time, points. Okay. First option, points match with a time limit, say 10 minutes. Second option, no time limit match. Third option, time limit with EBI rules. Which one of those three would you pick?
for sure I've never fought a no time limit, and I think that my game is perfect for no time limit, because like I just love that concept of dragging people out to deep waters, and I have such good cardio. And then also my jiu-jitsu game, not that it can like stall well, but like I have my half guard is like really hard to pass. So it gives me time to not burn energy while they're burning energy to kind of regroup and stuff. And like I actually, speaking of Brianna St. Marie, she had that one no time limit match against Hannah out west, and there was like 2.5 hours or something, just absolutely
Oh yeah,
crazy.
recently.
Yeah. And I remember just, and like, I've never, actually, I guess I did meet her briefly at that seminar, but I just feel like me and her would get along because she says things that I could just see myself saying. But she's like, yeah, I had this mental battle the whole time. Like, oh, please tap me so we can go home. And then like, no, shut up. Champions don't speak like that. And I was just like, oh, that's totally like that mental game that you go through when you're competing. But I feel like I've never done no time limit, but the interesting thing about time limit is that it really draws on the mental aspect of competing, I think, and I think I have a really mentally strong game. And I think it'd be really interesting to compete like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be an awesome matchup, and I think it'll happen one day.
Yeah.
Some questions that people submitted. One was, how many times a day and how many times a week do you train?
Um, like just jiu-jitsu, or like just kind of like
Let's
in
say
general.
just overall, like an average day, how many times like are you, well, like
Like
what's an average day?
So yeah, right now I've really been on like the consistency kind of train. And I think that like is probably part of like the maturing and getting older. But um I struggled a lot before with like, getting really in shape, or like just grinding before tournament, and then just like falling off the map, and like sometimes having like mental health issues that would just make it harder to be consistent. Or even if you are training, you're also like eating a tub of ice cream every night, you know what I mean? So I've been trying to just find that balance of like consistency, so that what I do I can do every day and not have those crash and burns. So I actually have like a habit tracker now where I like check off all the things. So like in a perfect day, well, what I do every single morning without fail is I take my dogs out, and I usually do like the walking meditation, walk them and hike for a bit, and then I'll try to run at some point, like even if it's just a kilometer, like just something to get the check mark that I said I ran. And that to me is like the most, and that's like every day without fail. And then I usually work out after it. So I usually work out at the gym about 5 days a week. My sister is my workout partner right now. In general, I do really well with like partners, accountability, classes,
Yeah.
coaches, people telling you that you're a piece of shit. Like, those are all things that work really great for me. So I'm really lucky to have a whole bunch of people in my life right now. My sister's my workout partner. So we work out in the mornings about 5-6 days a week. And nothing crazy, but just go there. And then I train like anywhere between 5 and 7 days a week for about 2 hours of like rolling, striking and stuff. And then I try to get at least a half an hour every day in of either drilling or watching technique videos, but that's the one I have a harder time doing. So I usually only get around to drilling about like maybe 3 times a week. Right before a tournament, it's easy to hit that every day of the week. It's no problem because you're scared shitless. But so that's kind of like what a typical week is. And then of course, sometimes there's weeks where you like fall off the wagon and stuff. And there's it's actually an interesting question because that's something that you always want to know, like you always want to quantify what input do I have to put in to get the output of like being like rewards, right? And like I said, I have a habit of like pushing myself too hard, then tanking and stuff. And sometimes when I have those tournament nerves, I'll beat myself about the time off things. Like when I'm not doing well, or when I just those times where you just make the bad decision where you should train and you just do not go. You should stop eating and you do not. You should not do this and you just like and you just like no. And like it was around that last like set of nerves that was what was kind of like really bugging me, because over the summer I had a bit of a couple periods where I just was struggling with different things and not able to train as consistently as I would like. And then you tell yourself like, a world champion would train every day, but and then like so my new goal has been that I want to be somebody who can like have bad mental health sometimes, or like just be a piece of shit and eat really bad, or just make really bad choices, but like just still really try really hard and keep trying, and then like still get the same goal in the end, because you don't know how much everybody else is training. You don't know, right? Like I don't post any pictures on the days when I haven't showered in 3 days and I've been in bed crying. Like I don't post those pictures online and stuff. Like sometimes I think about it because it's like I think about it in bed. I'm like, it'd be hilarious just to just be like, here's what I actually do when I'm not feeling well. But
but that's not people's Instagram. And I think it's like I think people would be surprised, and it's true. Like a lot of competitors deal with nerves, but I think people would be a little bit surprised to hear you talk about it, just because like, I mean, you seem so dominant in competition. You're winning everything. A lot of people will probably think like, oh, Sarah just goes in and thinks like, I'm just going to smash everyone today. But that's not what you think. You deal with the nerves, sometimes bad, like everybody else. And I deal with it a lot myself too. I find when I was younger, I didn't have it as much. But I played like a lot of team sports and stuff. And I feel like one thing my friends would probably say is like, I don't easily get embarrassed. So I feel like that worked for me when I competed, because I just go out and kind of do my thing. But now I'm sure like you would know too, just getting older, you just have so many things to worry about as you get older, and you just get more nervous. I find I do going through competition. So yeah, I think I think people would really be interested.
Right? Like it looks like I don't know how many hours a week you spend training, but it looks like from your online presence that you spend a lot of time training, digesting, like breaking down videos and stuff. So like I feel like it becomes more on the line, because you're no longer just like, oh, I'm a casual trainer, I'm just gonna go see what happens. It's like, okay, I'm dedicating my life to this. I hope I look okay on the stage, because I should, like there's enough hours. Like, and that the biggest thing is like, even there's been events that I went to where I've 100% known or thought that I was going to win, and you can still get nerves even when you're confident, right? And like I think like understanding that you have like, I don't remember which part of the brain is it, but like the book I was talking about always calls it like the chimp part of your brain that you have to like wrangle in, because it it gets scared easily, it tries to protect you, so like it just throws out those thoughts. And so just understanding that like those thoughts aren't the reality, they're not you, like they are thoughts. And that was just like literally having my eyes open to being like, oh, this isn't all just the truth. Like I was competing in spite of the fact that I was a lazy POS. I was competing in spite of the fact that I didn't train. Like, you know what I mean? And then just kind of getting that realization, like, oh, these are just like sabotaging thoughts. Okay, like it just made it easier to be like, okay, I can still feel the stress from them, but like it's not the truth, right?
Yeah, and just having those resources, whether you get it from a book or a coach or watch a YouTube video, I think like it's come up a couple times on this podcast now, just people putting so much pressure on themselves in jiu-jitsu, and you just can't help it some of the time. But I think you're not born a good competitor. You need to learn it. You need to learn strategies to combat like the mental stress that you go through, the physical stress. So I think that's you're an awesome example of someone that went through stresses, figured it out, and now you're having a lot of success. And now you probably know, like, you're not going to beat yourself up too much. If you do go in the next tournament and have a loss, you'll just use the strategies that you've been using to get back at it. So I think that's awesome.
Just beat yourself up for a smaller period of time. Like Keenan Cornelius just competed at Pans, and then he posted a video after about, because I think he lost fairly early on. I don't know exactly when, but he posted a video about how competing, like how the mental part of competing, because he's like, everybody always says, oh, I wish I could compete how I compete in the gym, and it's like, well, of course, but you can't though, because it's competing. Like there's a whole mental game that comes alongside with it, and if you're not strong mentally, like you're not. And I think like the biggest advice I could give to people is like, just even if it hurts, like just keep throwing yourself in the situation, because exposure to that and continually gaining those experiences is like the biggest thing that you can do to prove to yourself that you're able to do that and withstand that pressure.
Yeah, getting those reps. You need the reps to be good at it. Like, be kind to yourself, because there's going to be some bumps in the road. But if you want to compete in jiu-jitsu and want to be good at it, you're going to have to do it a lot. So I think you're definitely a testament to that. Just a couple more random question and answers. So when you were, before you got into jiu-jitsu, I guess, before you got into MMA, did you have any athletes that you admired or that you looked up to? Did you have a favorite athlete?
George St. Pierre, I guess, for sure. He was kind of like I think he was almost what kind of started drawing me to the sport. I was never really into sports. The only sport I did like cross country and a bit of basketball in school, and I never really liked those as spectator sports. But when I think I started following MMA around when I don't remember who George St. Pierre fought before Nate Diaz, but it was between that fight and the Nate Diaz. Maybe it was Koscheck. I can't know. I was probably a bit earlier, but anyways, it was around that fight where like I just started really following him, and like I just like loved how respectful he was. I don't know. That was just like what really like drew me to him, about just how like confident, kind, like all these things. And I remember just like I'd just go and watch his fights by myself, and I'd just be like so stoked about it and stuff. So that was definitely like the first one that I got. And then like I think the second kind of big person that won me over was when Thug Rose won the belt from JJ.
Oh yeah.
And that was just such a moment, because I don't think anybody thought she was going to do that, let alone in that fashion, and that was right when I was kind of getting into MMA and like felt like a really big underdog, and I was older than most people and stuff like that. And I remember being like in the bar, like where I was with my gym watching that, and like it just, put tears in my eyes, and I was just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to fight MMA. Rose can do it. So can I, but yeah, those are like kind of my two biggest, I'd say, like inspirational people in the sport.
Awesome. If you got a clone of yourself in the gym as a white belt, say we're just talking just jiu-jitsu, what are some things that you would teach yourself or tell yourself to focus on as you were training?
Well, my baby sister just started jiu-jitsu, so I have a little clone of myself, and I have been just like, I like make her come over to my house. She's actually a blue belt now, so she just moved out here, so we're in the same province now, and she's just a fresh blue belt. And so I do have her come over and spout everything in. And the biggest things that I do tell her are like, and everybody told me to this, what I would tell everybody else is exactly what everybody told me, and I just didn't listen to. like picking a few moves from every position, sticking with it, making the game plan, like just kind of like starting off with a really narrow focus, and which is so hard to do in a sport where you don't know anything, and like, because you do want to learn everything, and like maybe that is the right way of learning it and stuff, but you don't realize that those like little guard, like pretty much like whatever guard pass you get good at first, or whatever like sweep you get good at first, I think ends up being what guard you play for the rest of jiu-jitsu. Like, it just kind of ends up being like what you do. So it's like, so even my sister, when I tell her that, she's like, well, I don't know what guard I like. I'm like, just pick one, like just literally pick one. And then if you just focus on it, you're going to get good. And if you're going to pick a guard to be good at, it obviously better be half guard.
Almost like when you're playing a video game and it's really hard and you find one move that works. So you just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. That's what you do in jiu-jitsu. It's so hard and you just get beat up and choked. And it's just like, if you find one thing that works, it's like, oh, I'm going to try this on everyone. Right.
Yeah. And I think like, just like all the same typical stuff. Like even with all the mental stuff I've been going, like the mental like journey I've been going through, it's like there's so many of those like inspirational quotes that I've seen. Like you know, like if you haven't got what you want, like you just it's because you stopped trying, or like just all those stupid stuff that like lately I've been like, it's all just so true though. Like it really is, you know, like and it's just all that lame stuff I heard, like just you just keep showing up every day, even when you hit the plateau. It's every like the hours on the mat all count and stuff. I do think that like trying to form, if possible, to form those really good women relationships is really important for like when you are a girl too, because it just helps in so many ways.
Yeah.
Just to be able to like focus in on that and then and just compete often if you're somebody like full whatever like no some people will try to justify me. They're like, oh, I don't think I want to compete though, and this and why. I'm like, well, of course, like if you don't want to, it's fine. Like competing does have a lot of cons, like you know what I mean. So if that's not something that interests you, like there's no shame in that. Like some people
Yeah.
say you should compete once, whatever. I don't like you do you, but if you have any interest in it, I think that this kind of like one of the keys to give yourself a huge advantage is that early belts. Just throw yourself into competitions. I don't even I couldn't tell you. I know that I won my first white belt tournament, and I know that I got a bronze medal at Pans at white belt. I can't tell you a single other result of any other tournament like up till purple belt. You know, like you just don't think of them, and so it's just a good chance to get all those nerves out and just get used to stepping on the mats and stuff. And I also tell new me just to not even bother with the gi and go right to no gi.
Nice. I love it. I
I
love it.
just I am glad that I have a no-gi like base for sure, because it is nice to be able to like my last big event, they actually when I got there, they're like, "Oh, we have like a girl, a brown belt who wants a super fight in the gi." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. I'll bring my gi." He's like, "Just so you know, she's like a few weight classes heavier than you and a no-gi and a, like an IBJJF world champ." And I was just like, all right, like you know what I mean? And the match ended up in a draw, but it was just but like it's like even though I don't train gi anymore, I still have enough fundamental knowledge that I was able to like make it a draw, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah. Nogi is definitely the wave. What's your favorite TV show currently?
so I have 4 shows that I just rotate between. So and those shows are like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Office, um, Seinfeld. Is there maybe it's just those 3 actually. And so I just rotate through those on repeat. And so I'm on a Seinfeld kick right now. And then
Yeah.
yeah, then The Office will be next. And then it was gonna be The Office, and I think they took it off Netflix because I didn't see it.
Oh no, it's probably on like
Maybe
another streaming.
yeah,
Um,
maybe it.
what about this one? Who have you rolled with the most in your jiu-jitsu career?
Probably Jesse, like, because the person I've been dating for the last like 5 years now, like we weren't actually training at the same gym when we first met. But then when we moved to Nova Scotia, we've been training together, and we have a gym at home. So me and him drill, like I was saying, we drill probably at least 3 times a week. We try to go in early to class a couple times a week and drill. He's always my first warm up roll of the class because I roll really hard all the time. So it's just nice getting a warm up, like somebody who I know is not going to hurt me, like because I know I
Yeah.
roll hard. So he's always my first roll of every class. Um, yeah, so I mean, like not most people don't have a partner who trains jiu-jitsu. So, but I feel like if
Yeah.
you do, it's
So
just good to
cool.
that person.
That's so cool to have a partner. It's like the Rotolo brothers. Like you always have someone to train with, always someone to drill. Hey, let me check out this leg drag I just saw. You
Yeah,
know,
you
he
always
knows what
have
you're doing.
somebody to, like you always have somebody to split on like competition costs because like we split hotels when you go. You have a coach when you go. So yeah, there's a lot of pros. Like the only con of it is your relationship is like when we had different gyms, it was nice if like just sometimes to go to your separate things because sometimes we will be spending like 5 days straight with each other, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go step outside for a second just to get like a breath of air, you know. But
Yeah.
it
Yeah. That's
honestly is awesome, and he's super super supportive of me because I really like chase. I'm like I just get more opportunities. I'm a higher belt than him. Like I've been chasing it harder, so sometimes there is times where he's coming along and I'm competing and he's not and stuff like that. So he's super supportive, which helps.
yeah. Jesse's awesome. He's a really, really talented. Is he still purple belt?
Yeah, and he's been a purple belt for like a couple of years, 2 years now probably, and he's on a like he's been getting really good lately. So like I feel like we used to have a good back and forth, and even though he was stronger and faster, I was more technical, so I would usually get the upper hand. And like I don't usually get the upper hand anymore. And it just made me realize like that for like 5 years, he's just been like getting tapped out and still being nice after because he taps me out. And I'm like, don't slap my hand, you jackass. You know what I mean? I'm like so salty about it. Like, it's like, but anyways, I find that it also like we really get we're very competitive. Like we have very hard rolls. Like sometimes people in the gym will get a little scared when we're like when we have the gloves on and stuff because we're just going at it. But like I find like when I'm starting to get a bit better with than him, all of a sudden you'll see him like watching more videos and stuff. And like I rolled with him last and he's getting better. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going home watching dinner all night long. Like, you know, so it kind of keeps you like fired up to train.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love it. What's the last technique that you really like got obsessed with? The last new technique that you're like, oh, okay, I'm really enjoying this, or this is new to my game.
So I just finished, not obviously perfecting, nothing perfected, but like, so I just kind of finished I have like a high mount to armbar back, like arm triangle kind of sequence I go through. But like, I feel like I just kind of like have like dusted that off for where it's going to be. So I'm trying to do new things. I've been really trying hard to work on knee shield passing lately. And like literally, I think we talked about it when I was at your gym actually, because literally everybody who I can get my hands on, I'm like, so how do you do it? But I can't say I've been enjoying it because I absolutely hate it and I don't feel like I'm getting better at it. I would say actually I'm starting to get good with a butterfly hook. Because like from a half guard, I'll get the butterfly hook in. And like there is a certain feeling to like butterfly sweeping somebody. I don't know what it is, but because usually a lot of my sweeps are like the old school, you know, half guard sweep. That's like kind of my bread and butter. Like there are a lot of like the grindy forcing sweeps.
Yeah.
Those ones where you just throw a big man over your head with a little toe, like it just feels good, man. Like, you know,
Yeah,
you
it's just
feel
so smooth. I
and,
definitely feel that too.
and you switch the way you can like, you know, follow their momentum to like get the knees cut right away. Like there's just something very ninja feeling about that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, and I feel the same way. It's just not about size; it's more just about angle, getting the proper setup, and you can really throw pretty much almost anyone. So yeah, I love learn your hook sweeps if you're watching this. What's a couple of your favorite movies?
Ooh, I haven't watched movies in a while. Actually, you know what? I just started getting like Jesse was really into like superhero movies and those Avenger movies, those were the first movies in a long time. It's like I don't really watch like I watch my 3 shows that I told you over and over again. And I don't really like consume much. Like I listen to podcasts and stuff like that, but I don't really watch much stuff. So anyway, he had me watching that stuff. And those Avenger movies really got me. Like I was like running around screaming I am Groot for like weeks and weeks, and like I still always do like the Wonder Woman thing. I'll do it when I win sometimes and stuff. Like I just got right into that. And like yeah, so I'd say like I don't know which one was my favorite one, but whatever one had Groot in it, that one I just like absolutely
Guardians of
love.
the Galaxy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, that one. So that was
Me
the
and my
last one.
wife watched all of them over COVID when everything was shut down. We hadn't watched
Yeah.
any of them, same thing. And we were like, well, if we're ever going to watch these superhero Marvel Avengers movies, we might as well watch them now. So we watched all 15 or 20.
They're
However
awesome.
many they are.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah, and I can't think of a second one, but I do my go-to classic. I've always just loved Back to the Future. Like
Awesome. What do you usually eat for breakfast?
I don't eat breakfast. Like I've always really been into like the intermittent fasting and stuff. So um I'm actually right now in like trying to switch it to do a morning window instead of an evening eating window. But usually just like the first thing of every day, one of my little habit tracker things that I have to check off to do is like to eat, like I try to eat just something whole, like raw and just natural first thing, like just like vegetables or ideally just fruit. I feel like that kind of just like starts me mentally off, right? I just like love eating. So like my biggest challenge in all of life is just avoiding chocolate. Like that's just like and like pastries and stuff. Like that is just like the biggest thing. Um so sometimes I find that with fasting, what happens is like, you know, you get used to fasting, so you're not hungry. Then all of a sudden it's like 2 p.m. and you're like, I'm ravenous. And you just grab whatever's closest and like scarf down 3 meals and like you've completely negated all the positive effects of that fasting and stuff. So yeah, I just try to either have like a protein shake or just some fruit for breakfast.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. What's a jujitsu move that you don't like?
Um, I have had my wrist broken before because I don't believe in wrist locks and I won't tap to them. It's not real, and I won't tap. I've had my wrist broken before because of that mentality, and I'll have it happen again, honestly.
Yeah. Wrist locks and knee shields. You don't like knee shields either.
Yeah, I mean, but knee shields I will one day like, because like I'm on that mission right now, but wrist locks, like no, just literally, I'll literally say when people have it, I'm like, you're gonna have to break it, man. Honestly, I'm not gonna tap to that. Like I don't believe in that. Like, but same thing, like just in general, when people do like those crank, like I'm trying to think of other examples, but like like the maybe the can opener or like just different moves that aren't taps or pain submissions, I will absorb every ounce of that pain to protect the pain that could be caused to my ego.
I
like, like
love
all those kind of stuff. I'm always just like, no, no.
Yeah.
So.
If you're in charge of setting the round timer for rolling, how long are the rounds going to be?
Ooh, I really like to do a variety of rounds. I think that is just good for your own mentality, especially for a competitor to do different rounds. So I wouldn't like it set at a certain time, but I do prefer like I'd say 7, 6s. It kind of because if you have like say a huge class, a lot of people, you want kind of maybe shorter rounds so you can hit up more people before competitions out a few longer. But I would say probably like 6 would be the magic number for me.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I think it's good to get a variety. I like
Yeah.
switching it up 5, 6 minutes. I did a 10-minute round the other day.
Yeah,
I usually don't take very long breaks in between rounds, even if I have a minute or a minute and a half
I'm
set for
on
the rest.
Tuesday.
Usually I'll just try and grab someone and just try and just roll right away. So yeah, I think it's good to switch it up.
And even sometimes I like to even switch like on the timer, switch up the rounds like of my breaks. You know what I mean? Because I just think that like without realizing, sometimes like you can just get used to the round stops and your brain's like I have a minute to rest. So it just kind of gets your brain being like, okay, no, you got 30 seconds, just so that you're kind of always like just anticipating instead of kind of falling into habits and stuff.
Yeah, never let yourself get too comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Well, this was great. Thanks a lot, Sarah, for the time. It
Yeah.
was
Thanks for
awesome to
having
learn.
me.
Yeah, awesome to learn a little bit more about you. And it was cool to hear some more about just what you go through as a competitor. And it's awesome to see you getting some more wins now. And I know it's going to happen. And I know we're going to watch you on one of these Flow grappling cards coming up. So we'll look back on this and be like, see, remember when I interviewed Sarah and now she's on all these Flow grappling cards and
I
winning
predicted
EPI.
it. Yeah.
I know it. I know it's going to happen, and it was awesome to actually finally get to train with you a couple weeks ago. There, you and Jesse stopped in at my gym, so that was amazing. So yeah, it's awesome to have you in the scene, and I love getting to chat with you, getting to train with you, and it's awesome getting to watch what you're up to. So if you have any sponsors or any if you want to shout out your gym or anything, the floor is yours.
Yeah, all the usual ones. Like my gym is Fall MMA, who I love, and then my coach from back home is RDC, and then my only sponsor is Arcadia Sheet Metal, and then I just always shout out Fight League Atlantic any chance I get because I really feel like it's been their platform that I really got to stand off of into all these new opportunities.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, shout out to FLA. They're really doing amazing things for women too. I saw a recent post you probably saw from Fiona Davies that she said, a lot of events, they barely have any women on the card. There's one woman's match. It's almost like a novelty just to get them on the show. But FLA is they always have women as part of their events. If there's a men's bracket, there's likely a women's bracket too. So yeah, shout out to FLA. They're doing amazing things.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to training with you again.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait till I see you on the mats again. And yeah, best of luck with whatever comes up next for you. And I'm sure I'll be chatting with you again sometime. So thanks again, Sarah, and have an awesome night.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.